February 3, 1959, a date etched into the very soul of American music, the day the music died. But what do we really know about that night? We know the names: Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper, Ritchie Valens. We know a plane crashed. We know the line from the song. But the true story, the story of what really happened, is a chilling chain of events more dramatic than any fiction. A story of a tour so disastrous it was nicknamed the Tour from Hell, of frozen buses, a flip of a coin, and a joking remark that would become a haunting curse. It's a story that asks a terrifying question. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Why did a young pilot take off into a blizzard? And what did investigators find in that snowy cornfield that solved the mystery decades later? Stick around, because today we're not just remembering a tragedy, we're uncovering the truth. This is what really happened the day the music died. But before we begin, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to support our community. The Winter Dance Party Tour, headlined by Buddy Holly, who had recently split from his band, the Crickets, appeared ill-fated from its inception. It commenced on January 23, 1959, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and meandered through Iowa and Minnesota with a complete disregard for practical planning. Buddy Holly historian Bill Griggs stated that they showed no concern. It was as if they had selected locations by throwing darts at a map. The Tour from Hell is what it was called, and it was a fitting title. Making the terrible situation worse, the performers were made to ride on refurbished school buses, which Griggs noted weren't even fit for school children. The buses lacked heating, and journeying through the severe winters of Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa on frozen roads severely strained both the vehicles and those inside. Griggs believes 5 different buses were utilized within the tour's initial 11 days. Tommy Alsop, Holly's guitarist on that tour, recalled traveling through Wisconsin. "We were going up this hill. The snow was coming down hard, and the bus just kept losing speed. And the lights grew fainter and fainter. Then suddenly the bus came to a halt. The driver announced that the bus had frozen solid. The musicians gathered together under blankets, set fire to newspapers in the bus aisle, drank whiskey, and shared stories with one another. It was so intensely cold that Holly's drummer, Carl Bunch, got frostbite in his feet, which caused him to miss the subsequent tour date, Holly's final performance. These nightmarish travel circumstances would be the primary reason Holly chose to charter a plane on the night of February 3rd. For over a week, Holly, Richardson, Valens, and the other artists on the tour had been transported around the upper Midwest by bus, encountering constant difficulties. The general agreement was that everyone on the bus was becoming exhausted and resentful because of the poor situation. The lack of clean clothing only made things more difficult. One of the reasons Holly proposed avoiding the bus trip after their performance in Fargo, North Dakota, to Moorhead, Minnesota, was because he needed to do his laundry. He calculated that the 400-mile flight from Fargo to Moorhead would afford him some extra time to wash his clothes and rest before he was scheduled to perform the next day. The other performers agreed, and Valens, Richardson, and Holly took the group's laundry with them when they departed from the airport. Ritchie Valens was not initially scheduled to be on Holly's chartered plane. Holly proposed one of the 2 available seats to Dion DiMucci from Dion and the Belmonts, the tour's opening act. The chartered flight was priced at $108 for Holly, who then offered Dion a place on the plane for $36, representing a third of the total cost. The figure of $36 stayed with Dion because it was a substantial sum of money to him. When Buddy stated, "That will be $36, he named the exact number that was in my mind. The monthly rent for my parents' apartment was $36. And they fought my entire life over that $36 because my father was a wonderful man, but he was emotionally a teenager, and he never held a job." In the end, Dion decided the $36 fee, equal to well more than $300 in today's money, was an unjustifiable extravagance, so he declined Holly's proposal. Holly then inquired if his 2 band members wanted the spots. Guitarist Tommy Alsop and bassist Waylon Jennings were prepared to take the flight, but the situation shifted when Richardson's flu, which he had been suffering from for days, intensified. Jennings kindly surrendered his place to the sick Big Bopper. Valens, who was famously afraid of flying, was also struggling with a severe cold and asked Alsop for the remaining seat. Alsop still recalls the conversation with Valens after the singer asked, "Are you going to let me fly, man?" Alsop replied, "No, let's decide it with a coin toss." I am not sure why I suggested we flip for it, since I'd been refusing him the entire night, but I took a $50 coin from my pocket. I've never comprehended what prompted me. It simply occurred. I tossed the 50-cent piece and told him, "Call it." Ritchie called, "Heads," and it landed heads up. Before he was known as an outlaw country music star, Waylon Jennings was the bassist for Holly. When Holly informed Jennings he had secured one of the seats for him, the future country music rebel gave his position to the Big Bopper, who had been battling a terrible case of the flu for a large part of the tour. Holly joked that Jennings would have to endure another frigid night on the bus and told him, "I hope your old bus breaks down again." Jennings retorted with a sharp joke of his own, stating, "Well, I hope your darn plane crashes." That statement would torment Jennings for years. Good Lord, for such a long time, I believed I was responsible for the crash. February 2, 1959, was the date of the tour's 11th performance, held at the Surf Ballroom in Clear Lake, Iowa. However, it is important to note that this show was not even part of the tour's initial schedule. The second was intended to be a rest day for the performers, but the tour's promoter phoned ahead and secured a venue that could host the show. A day off, after all, meant a day without any income. The musicians played 2 sets at the Surf Ballroom, with the final one concluding close to midnight. Following the performances, a handful of fans accompanied Holly, Valens, and Richardson to the airfield and watched them board the aircraft. As snow swirled in the air, the small 4-seat Beechcraft Bonanza departed just after 12:30 a.m. on February 3rd. The Civil Aeronautics Board's report indicated the plane headed south and climbed in a routine fashion. After traveling roughly 5 miles, observers still at the airfield saw the plane's taillight gradually descend until it vanished from sight. Radio communication with the aircraft was also lost. Search planes the following morning located the wreckage in a farmer's field covered in snow. With no eyewitnesses, it is impossible to know the precise events that befell the plane carrying Valens, Richardson, Holly, and Peterson. But investigators estimate it struck the ground at a speed exceeding 170 miles per hour. Officials determined the tip of the right wing was the first point to hit the ground, and all 3 musicians were ejected from the vehicle as it cartwheeled and broke into pieces, finally stopping against a barbed wire fence. Holly and Valens were each located approximately 17 feet from the wreckage, while authorities found Richardson about 40 feet away. Peterson became trapped in the aircraft, and police discovered his body within the fuselage. The force of the event was so violent that recovery teams found fragments of the plane as distant as 540 feet away. Although poor conditions prevented rescuers from reaching the crash site for 10 hours, coroners were certain all 4 individuals died instantly upon impact. The official Civil Aeronautics Board report determined that Roger Peterson, the 21-year-old pilot, did not possess sufficient experience to be operating a plane in a snowstorm. Peterson had accumulated 711 hours of flight time and had been a pilot for more than 4 years. But since the wreckage showed no evidence of engine failure or other mechanical issues and the landing gear was still retracted, officials concluded that Peterson's inexperience with snowy conditions caused the accident. They also found no indication that anyone had informed Peterson about 2 flash advisories issued by the U.S. Weather Bureau that morning, which warned of an approaching blizzard that would severely limit visibility. While an experienced pilot could have navigated these circumstances, they would have needed to depend entirely on their instruments to fly, as they would be unable to see the horizon outside the window. In the end, the Civil Aeronautics Board decided Peterson lacked the necessary training for this type of instrument-based flight. It is also probable he became disoriented by the plane's gyroscope, which functioned inversely to those in other aircraft he was accustomed to flying, meaning Peterson might have thought he was climbing when he was actually directing the plane downward. So the official report pointed to a pilot's error in a storm. But with a flipped coin, a joking curse, and a plane that should have never left the ground, one has to wonder, was it really just a tragic accident, or did fate itself conspire to silence the music? What do you think truly happened? Let us know in the comments.